Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. We recently celebrated our first anniversary of the opening of our brick and mortar location in Rock Island, Illinois. We had a lot of fun. We had a big demo day where we invited our local customers to come check it out and see lots of free demos all day long. And we had lots of requests from you guys to be able to see them as well. So we did film them. It's not the same quality as you've come to expect from the ones that you see here in our home studio because I was filming it live with like 20 people looking on while I was doing it. So there was no time to adjust cameras and lightings and angles. We just turned the camera on and let it roll. This one that you're about to watch is all about ruler work. So if you have been intrigued by how to do ruler work on the long arm, you can check this video out. I demo with some of my favorite rulers and kind of talk through the supplies you need and some different options that you can do when you're doing that on your quilts. So check it out. So when you are doing ruler work quilting, the most important tool you will have is your extension base. You need to contact your long arm manufacturer to see what they make that fits your particular machine because this one's specific to my machine. So contact them, see what they have. They normally run, oh she escaped, about $150. I know, she was behind.
I know where she's going.
$150 or so is about what you can expect for those. We get clamped up. I'm a popular lady today. Okay, so I'm going to demo a couple of my favorites and some new ones that just came out. Of course, I have way too much stuff on here.
That's a nice cart. That's a
Yeah,
great
I really
idea.
like having it because then I can kind of obviously cart it around with me as I go. So the reason why you want this ruler base is because then when you're going around, you've got something for this to sit on. If you didn't have that, this would be flopping all over the place and you wouldn't have nice clean lines. So I'm going to invite you guys to take a look at some of the quilts that have this as we walk around. None back here do. So Medallion Star out front has it. The nice big block of the month one has it. The burst quilts have it. And what this can do is you can really get nice, straight, smooth, or consistent curves depending on what it is that you want to do. So I'm going to go through a couple of the ones that I do, and if someone can just let me know when we're getting to like 10-2. Josie, can you let me know when we're at 10-2, and that's when I will quit quilting.
Always do.
Awesome, thank you. So the only thing I've done to prep this so far is I have quilted down my edges, and so that way I have a nice straight flat piece to look at. I was able to stand where Steph is here and look all the way down to make sure that I'm nice and straight. And technically what I'm about to do now, you could do if you have a channel locking feature on your machine. I don't like, and I could do that with this, but that means that if I'm going to sew a straight line down here, then I had to also line this up perfectly straight on my machine. And I don't know about you, but I'm not perfect, so I'm never going to be able to do that probably. This ruler that I'm going to use first is the 4-in-1 ruler by Natalia Bonner, Piece and Quilt. For all the rulers that I'm using today, we had no idea this was going to be as popular of a class as we did. So you can get them from us, and you can get your 15% off discount, and then we will order them for you, and we usually have them within about a week. So you can save your money, get them ordered today, and we'll get them ordered for you. Some oil on that, let's get that off. Okay. So this one's nice because it has multiple curves and angles that you can get. I use the straight line the most and then this curve the most. So first I'm going to show you guys some straight line quilting with this. So I've got my thread secured and my needle down on the right side of the seam allowance. And I should probably tell you guys that when I started quilting my own quilts, I started pressing all my seams open because I found it a lot easier to be able to get right into the points if they were nice and flat that way than if I had, you know, a bunch of stuff pressed underneath it. It makes it more challenging and your needle doesn't want to go through all the time. So I tend to press open as much as possible. So this foot, and that's the other thing you need, is you need a foot that is 1/4 inch away at all times from your needle. So if you have one that's open, it's not going to work because there's going to be points where it's not going to line up right. And then you'll be trying to get your 1/4 inch away and it's not going to work and it's going to be a pain. So you need a foot like this where it's circle, that's 1/4 inch away from your needle at all times, and then your extendable base, and then any ruler of your choice. So what I do is I just am holding it straight, and I can make little adjustments as I go, but you don't want to like do that because then you're going to see. Like I've gotten a little bit above where that seam is, so I'm kind of angling down a little bit to get kind of back where I want, and now I'm kind of doing just a real subtle shift to even it out a bit. Because I don't want to do any jerky movements. That is going to be the surest way to tell that you have screwed something up, is if all of a sudden it's this nice smooth line or curve, and then all of a sudden it jerks. And then you're going to know real quick that you messed something up. So when I am doing right on this seam, I go really slow because I want to try to make sure that I'm staying on one side of that seam. So even though this is pressed open and there isn't really a ditch to sew in, I do want it to be like right next to it.
How much pressure are you putting down with your hand? My
Probably
shoulders.
about as much as I would if I were doing rotary cutting.
Okay.
But you do you're kind of pressing against. I'm really pushing down, really, more than against. And then this one does not, some do.
What was your question?
Yeah.
Oh, grippers on the bottom?
Yeah. Some do.
Yeah.
You
You
can
can add them.
always get like true grip. Okay, so this is the problem that I'm running into right now. That my ruler base is running into my clamps on the side. And so you can get around this in two ways. You can make backing a whole lot wider than you're going to need, so you don't have to run into that problem. Or I just pause and I kind of lift these up. And I may have to do that twice, and I will, because I hit one clamp before I hit the other. Okay, so my machine does not like to go from right to left. So at this point, I need to break my threads.
What does it do?
The thread will shred, and it will make a mess.
So you only can go,
So I only can go from right to left when I'm doing stuff like this. If I'm doing free motion, I can go any which way, and I'm fine. But when I'm doing ruler work, I have to go from left to right. So I keep that in mind as I'm planning my path. So you probably have seen when people do quilts like this, they a lot of times will put like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch away from the edge. So I'm going to mimic that for this first row using this ruler. So now we've got that first one done. That's easier. So now I'm going to put, there's these lines on the ruler which tell me where it is, and you'll notice it starts at 1/2 inch, because if you wanted it to be a 1/4 inch, all you would have to do is line it up with that very edge like that, because you already have that 1/4 inch. But I'm going to do a 1/2 inch away so that we have a little bit more space to work with and texture to create. So I'm going to pull my threads up. And ruler work is not challenging. You definitely need to practice to get the feel of it down, but it does take a lot of time. I took like 37 hours to do the quilt that's hanging in the window for our Block of the Month. It's in the other side. You guys can take a look at it.
so you
now
don't
this-
do one triangle at a time?
No. Now in that one I did change thread constantly. So I did, but I always plan like a path, always. So I'm going to show you how I would do this if I were mimicking. Because my goal is to break thread as little as possible, because that also adds time to it all. So I'm just going down, I'm lining up that 1/2 inch mark as I go. And since I don't have to worry about being super even with the seam, I can go a lot faster at that point. I don't have to think about it as much. Okay, so we're gonna break thread again. And now I'm gonna show you how I go from right to left with those diagonals.
So I'm assuming you do not stitch in the ditch because your seams are pressed open, right?
I stitch in the ditch because I like the look of it.
That's why.
I like the look of it.
But you did not quite stitch in the ditch, right?
No, I did not. They're pressed open, so I stitch next to the ditch. Which, when it's all said and done, you really can't grow.
Right.
You know,
But if
and a
you-
lot of times I end up going down both sides. Like if you look at the dimensions one, there's one side where I did it in the gray or white in the background, and then I did it again in the thread that I used to quilt. And I do that often. So I'm gonna come down to my point. I'm gonna change directions. And you kind of just have to get used to eyeballing it being a 1/4 inch away from wherever you want your needle to be. It's like when you're sewing and you're supposed to look at the edge of your presser foot. And of course, I'm not doing my best work because there's 20 people staring at me.
No pressure.
And if you end up going over a little bit, you know, at the end of the day, nobody's going to look at it as closely as you are right now. And they're just going to be happy that you made it for them. So like that one I crossed over, it's fine, it's not a big deal. This is the very first 60-degree triangle quilt I ever made. So my triangle points aren't super perfect.
Where you get what, bias edges?
Is your stitch regulated?
It is, and I recommend that you use it with ruler work because if you notice I'm slowing down quite a bit, so it would be really challenging. You would have some really tiny stitches in some point if you didn't do it. And that one's like pulling off, but you know what? In the end of the day, it's usually nobody can tell any time. Okay, so now I'm starting to hit this, which can knock me off a little bit. So if it's your first time, I would just do your backing like super huge.
Would you ever unclamp?
I would not because these always end up crooked on here, and I feel like I need the clamps in order to keep it nice and flat. Okay, I'm gonna do one more going down like that to show you how you can get that look and travel along this first line. Now what you could do, like if I was gonna do this, let's see, can I reach all the way down here? I can. Okay, so let's pretend that I wanna do that, because path is everything when you're quilting. And the more you can get done on one pass without breaking thread, the better. So I'm gonna figure out where I need to be. I'm lining up the 1/4 inch of my ruler, because we're going in 1/2 inch, with the edge of that. And so now I know this is where I need to start, because that's where my needle is to be in line with this edge. So now if I want to do that, set my stitches. Now this gets a little awkward, you kind of have to get used to it. So I start coming down that way, and then I sort of transfer my hand, because this is less awkward for me to do it this way. And we're getting caught on that. So now I can come all the way down here, and I can do this big path all at once. And so now when you're quilting it, when you're doing your next line of stitching, you're going to want to start in this exact same spot and basically repeat. And the way I'm going to hide that I'm moving is I'm going to stitch over. And then when you would stitch in the ditch along here, then it's going to cover that up and no one will know that you use that as a travel. So I need to come back a little bit. I stitched over a little more than I should have. Get everything lined up. And then I can keep traveling all the way up. But I do want to make sure that I stop about halfway through here. Or actually, no, I'll just go all the way up. So in this case, we're going to kind of be doing back and forth. So you can just kind of move. She's very okay. So in this case, we're kind of going a little bit all over here. But I'll show you the other side too. So it'll make sense.
So you're lining up the 1/4 inch, the
With the
line
edge,
on
yeah.
the seam or where you stitch?
On the seam, which is also where I stitched. Well, in this case, it's kind of either one. If you were doing where you wanted it to be exactly 1 inch apart, then just kind of go wherever, and that's fine. Okay, so here I've hit that seam, so I have to go slow to get above it. Because that's your biggest challenge, is not letting you realize that you just hit your seam.
Yeah.
So pull that up, and then I'll do the other way, and it will make a whole lot more sense, I promise. It's like when I demoed one of these people. Okay, so now we're going to do the other 1/2 inch. Is that cord hitting you guys over there?
Wait a minute, we're watching.
Yeah. Good deal. Just don't step in there. Okay. And we are going to do a hands-on class for this. The hands-on class is limited to 3 people because we want you guys to have a lot of time. So we schedule a morning and an afternoon session. If there are more people that want to do it, don't worry. We will make it happen and we'll do it. But now you can kind of start to see that that pattern is picking up. Now you can see here, we've quilted 1/2 inch on either side of all that. So it's looking cute now. And so you may have to do this a couple of times to get it to hit all your sides. So you may have multiple paths. But I find it a lot easier to do the big swoops of things rather than, you know, do one triangle all at a time and keep doing all your turns. And my machine is a lot happier that way too. Okay. So I'm just going to break my thread here because you're getting the gist of it, everybody? Okay. So that's if you want something really big, you kind of want to mimic the look of what you would do on your home sewing machine, but you want to do it on your long arm. And that's also how you use these to get different swooting actions. So I'm going to show you next how you would then go in and use this curve. And I love this curve. I use it all the time for all kinds of things. So let's start up here. No, I'm not going to be able to reach up there. Okay, so I'm going to start about halfway. Now here's where you really kind of have to get in the habit of realizing that you're going to be a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch away from the edge here. So I can't put this right on that corner or it's not going to stand up. It's going to stitch like over here somewhere. So I kind of have eyeballs where I want to be, get my thread pulled up, and it's a little challenging because we've got this weird thing going on here. I'm just going to take this one off. So would I unclamp? Yes, but only one. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and go to that point. And then when you readjust, you just kind of want to line it up so that again, you got about a 1/4 inch. Now if you need to readjust as you're going, that's fine, but you want to make small adjustments. once. Just real slowly turn it a little bit. Because again, if you do a big, huge movement, then it's going to be really obvious. So when I was doing this for a quilt with lots of these, what I would do first is I would I did the diagonals first and got everything nice and secured that way. And then I went through and I did stitch and a ditch across. And then I went through and I started doing these arcs. And so you can have multiple passes for one row.
So do you do one whole row, everything you're going to do in the whole quilt?
Yes. Now this one maybe not because we're demoing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be how I normally would do it. Like I normally would pick one of these designs and not put them all in one thing. So then for this next one, let's see if I can get up here. So
The height
roll this
of
back
the
a little
arc,
bit.
therefore, is determined by the width of the triangle.
it is. And so sometimes you'll have them where they will kind of come back on you a little bit. Like they'll overlap a bit and create like a little secondary design up at the tip. And that's kind of cute. It's just a design thing. It's not like it's wrong. It's just that's how it shook out. And, you know, it's not uncommon for me to have to roll back like this often to get to things that I need. Like I miscalculated how much room I need for the arc and that kind of thing. Because you want to be able to move as freely as possible when you're doing this. Pull this up. And not have to think too hard about it when you're doing it. That seems to be my theme. Set yourself up so you don't have to think too hard if you're doing it. So this part is always awkward for me because I always have to start like that and then switch to finish it. And if you wanted to, you could like make sure that this is in the exact same spot on each one. You could decide where it wants to be, put a painter's tape on, strip of painter's tape here, and then every time that arc's gonna be in that exact spot. It's been my experience that you cannot tell if you were in this part of the arc or that part of the arc when it's all done, so I don't mess with that. So see, there's that little secondary design that comes in right there. Because the arc overlaps a little bit based on the size and the way I had it positioned. But even if like your arcs aren't the exact same angle on each one, it's fine because they're still nice and smooth and consistent for the most part, which is what matters. Because if I were to just freehand this, there's no way I would get this kind of consistency. And my goal here is just to keep the ruler steady and keep this edge in contact with the ruler no matter what.
So you're actually doing small movements of the arc while you're...
No,
You're not.
I'm leaving the arc steady. I'm only moving my ruler if it looks like I have misjudged the quarter inch distance between that and the point. But I mostly want to keep it still. So now I've hit my thing. Normally if I just like lift it up with my hand, that's enough. What are we at time-wise, guys? 20 after. Okay. So I'm going to do one more with this one. And we'll finish off this piece. So we've done, how many have we done now? We did one across, we did up and down twice. We probably should have done that third time to get everything. And then we did arc down, arc up and down, and then I'm gonna do arc one more time here. So it's like 9 passes by the time I'm done with one row. But
That's why custom quilting costs so much.
it is why custom quilting costs so much. That is exactly true.
Pretty.
Payoff is always, that's what holds you to it, right? Because payoff.
Yeah, it's
Payoff, payoff, payoff. That's why you stick it out.
I
Payoff.
will
I don't mean money, I mean.
Yeah, oh yeah, no. I will tell you that, if you are doing this, you will get silver.
Yes.
Because there's
I'm sorry?
tension here as you're holding this still, and there's tension here as you're moving that. So if you can spread it out and you're not doing it 8 hours a day, that is ideal. That said, I definitely have done it 8 hours a day, and it paid for it. I had to get
So do you take photos to remember what you did?
if I'm doing something like this, I'm going to do it all over the thing. Or I'm going to be doing all of the colors at one time. So at the end, we'll kind of walk around a little bit and I'll show you some of the ones that I've done and we'll talk through what I did for it.
Pictures don't always help.
So do you get it off the frame and then look at it?
I did do that on dimensions. I realized that I was teaching and it was hanging and I realized I missed a bunch. But this is actually a really good way to hide mistakes. So I had a quilt that I did where I had started it and then it sat for a year and it was 60 triangles. So that's not really, so here's what I mean. This thing got hit. So I have to try to recover this so that you can't tell it's as obvious of a pop.
Stephanie, what I've done sometimes for that problem, I'll have like a ruler that I have with fabric, about 6 inches, and I'll just pin it on the side.
Yeah, that would work.
Just so it extends, so I don't hit the clamps all the time.
Yeah. But I had a quilt, it sat for a while, and I had used 2 different rulers when I was cutting out the 60 degrees, and so they ended up being different sizes. So I had some stuff to work in. But by doing up and down like that, I was able to ease it in and then go across. And there, out of like 600 triangles in the quilt, there were only 10 where you could tell that I had to fix some stuff with quilting. I also did a double bat with that one. I did wool and poly, so it gave it extra poof. So then it was harder to tell.
Forgiving.
Yeah. So if I were to do this, I would also do a 1/2 inch in along all these sides to get that finished, and then a 1/2 inch in across the top, and then that would complete sort of this look, so that it would have.
Would you
this
arc
look.
across the top?
I would arc across the top too, yes. That way you kind of have this design, plus imagine there's a 1/2 inch coming in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's cool, it's interesting, it's something fun, very modern way to do things, so I really like that. I'm going to show you, so I have not played around with these yet, but if you had like little small ones like that, that would be really nice to just pop in your corner and do your arc there. You can also use the lines on here to measure. If you wanted to do a secondary arc, I could line it up here, so that way it would be a 1/4 inch away from the top of that arc. So there's so many things that you could do with it. It's just a matter of how long do I want to play with this in order to make it happen. Well, that too. I have not done this for pay, and I don't know that I would. Just because I'm not that fast at it yet. I know it definitely still takes me a good amount of time to do things that I want to do. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some circles. So I did this on a book from, or a quilt from my book, and I really loved how it turned out. So I looked all over for half circle sets, or were for circle sets in general, and they were all super expensive until I found this Handy Quilter half circle, and it was really reasonably priced. I'm trying to find my 6-inch one. And they have, it's 2 sizes on each of them. So if you go with the outside, then it's an even set edge. If you're on the inside, then it's an odd number. So you can get all the way down to, I think it's a 1-inch circle, and it still works. Let's see, how tall are these? Taller than I thought they were. Okay, I can actually get, these are 6 inches finished, it looks like. So, when I'm sewing, or when I'm quilting, you'll be able to quilt your 12-inch circles here. So this is really cool if you have blocks that are exactly like 6 inches wide, because these are 6 inches tall, but they're not 6 inches wide. So I'm going to be able to create a circle on here, but it's not going to like match evenly with the edges of it. I did this on a quilt that had 6-inch squares on it, and it was really cool because you ended up with all these cool circles going through and concentric, and it was really fun. And then I also did ghost quilting. I had a quilt that was applique circles, and they were all even sizes. So I was able to quilt at 2-inch intervals around the edge of each of them, and then 2-inch circles inside of all of them to create texture. And then it was 1 panel of applique, and then the rest was all open space where you could have a lot of fun as a quilter. And so what I did was I drew out everything that was in the applique panel on the side. So from the back, it looks like you have 2 applique panels because the quilting is the same. But you would just have one that's quilted bubbles and one that's applique bubbles, and it turned out really cool. And I wish I had it to show you, but it is in the middle of Iowa right now. Could you just pull that cord so it's not caught on the back? Yeah, there you go, thank you. Okay, so even though we're doing a circle, I'm not going to do a full circle because, one, my machine, as we discussed, doesn't like to go right to left. And I find it easier to quilt going right to left anyway than trying to do a full circle all at once. So I'm going to show you how I would start it and then how I would finish it. So if you're trying to make sure that things meet at a certain point, you may want to use, I use these markers all the time. Like if I didn't have a seam line here, I would actually mark it. So that way I know where I'm supposed to line this little bit up with. Because this line here, you can kind of see it, that's where the middle of your circle is on these. So that's where you want to hit and aim for. They also have them here and here. So a lot of times you can use those as kind of reference marks. So you can kind of put them on there to help you along as you go. And there were times, like when I was doing the ghost quilting, I marked the heck out of that quilt. And this should come right at the top of that. And that's where, like if I'm going to make small adjustments, this is where I'm going to do it to make sure that I can still have that nice smooth curve, but it's going to hit right at the top. So now I'm going to move my hand because I don't have good control of this side if I'm still holding it over here. So I'm going to move my hand, lay my fingers out over, and come down. And if you go a little beyond, no big deal, because we're going to finish that circle up going the other way later. But now I'm going to go ahead and finish that. So I always go super slow when I'm getting around those edges because I want to come as close to that seam allowance as I can in this case. So I'm just lining up, making sure those seam edges are even. Did I hit you?
No, we're fine.
Something down there. one trick circle. What time are we at?
12:30.
Okay, we're doing all right. If I wanted to create a second set of circles here, which I would recommend doing with something this large, I would measure out 6 inches away. So that way you could start and do a second set. That would be about halfway in between. So I would measure over 6 inches and I would start here and I would start going. But since we're doing a demo and we want to do it kind of quickly, I'm going to advance so I can show you how to do the other half of the circle. And really, you just have to play with this. Like, get a quilt that is okay if you screw it up, or just go for it with one that you care about, which I've done, and give it a try. If there are errors, there are errors, and it's just part of the learning process, and it's fine. Okay, so I want to start this off at the same spot that my other one started. And now this is where we have that little tricky thing, because it's awkward for me to quilt this way, going down. But again, I'm making sure that I've got about a 1/4 inch away from where I need to hit here, and the bottom. Okay. So now I'm gonna grab it here. Try to get as close to the edge as possible. And now my goal here is to hit right where that other circle was. So I might do a little bit of adjusting of where this ruler is to make that happen, which you won't be able to tell in the finished quilt. You'll just see the texture of the circle, but you will tell if you didn't hit your circle. You'll be able to tell very clearly that you screwed up. So here I'm like way away from where I need to be, so I need to do some adjusting. And you always want to stop your needle down if you can. So now we've got a couple of perfect circles. When I was learning to quilt, I would always like try something out and I would do it king sized. And I feel like that's kind of how you get used to doing rulers too. You just kind of have to go big or go home. And then by the time you're done with it, you'll be really comfortable and ready to take on something new. So we have a little bit of wobble here. There was a catch or something in my table. And normally I would have stitched down this side too, to keep that nice and sturdy. So now we have perfect circles. Questions?
What
Just
kind of
itching
marking
to go
pen?
try. That's a friction gel pen. It's a kind that will come back in freezing temperatures, so don't ship it at Christmas time.
But it fades with
It goes away with heat. So I wouldn't leave, or water. I wouldn't leave it forever, because that could.
Are you saying friction?
Friction, I think they call it friction.
Yeah, F-R-I-X-I-O-N.
Yeah,
Okay.
friction.
Okay.
I've got them in a couple different colors. I've never had a problem with it going stain. I have had sometimes when I iron it off, it looks a little lighter, but then like a day or two later, it goes back to normal. So,
So even if you iron it off, it comes back in the fold?
yes.
Really?
Yeah.
So not to Alaska, sorry.
Yeah, don't send it
Customers in
anywhere
Alaska.
cold, and you'll be good to go. 10 minutes, awesome. So let's take a walk around. I'll talk through some of the things that I've done. There are a couple other rulers that are cute to use. This one is fun, but it would only work for specific size quilts. But what you could do is you could center it and you could quilt around it and travel. Quilt around and travel, quilt around and travel, and then you could do some fun like lines, like ruler work going up and create arches that way. And so even if this doesn't
Fenders.
fit your specific block, you can still have some fun with it. I haven't had a chance to have fun with it yet. But this one does have grippies on the back, and it also has dark and white lines. So that way you can see it well. The dark shows up here on the light, and the white shows up here on the dark. So that was really cool. Angela Walters came out with a couple of those rulers, and I had a chance to play with them yet, but they look really fun.
Do you feel a difference for the grippy stuff in the back when you? Do you feel it?
I can feel it, yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely feel it here. But
So it
too
doesn't
much-
slide so much?
I haven't had too much trouble with it moving on me, to be completely honest. But she made these with the idea of them being able to go back and forth between long arm and domestic, because you can do this on a domestic. They're starting to sell machine feet that are like this for domestic machines. I would contact your manufacturer to see if they have one, because I have not been able to find a really good universal foot that will do it. The difference is you're moving everything but your sewing machine, and here you're moving the sewing machine. And so it's a lot more to keep track of if you're doing it on the domestic. But let's go ahead and walk through, and again, we do have hands-on classes with this, but we're limiting it to 3 students each. If you don't end up in one of them, we'll do a sign-up sheet for a wait list, and we will figure out some additional time. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial from our demo day at our first anniversary sale. It was great to be able to celebrate with everyone, and especially to have 1 year in the books at a time when a lot of quilt shops are closing. So we're really fortunate to be able to make this happen. And it also includes, we had to thank you guys, because we do a lot of sales online. It is not just our local customers that keep us going. It is all the people who purchase from shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com, and we ship to them all over the world, really. We've got customers everywhere that we're shipping to. So thank you for being part of that. And also our wholesale patterns that are available at quilt shops across the US and Canada. So when you see the Quilt Addicts Anonymous logo, know that you are helping to support a small family business, even if it may not be local to you. So thank you very much for that. We're very appreciative of all of your support and watching our video tutorials and making our patterns and checking out our blog. We love you all for it. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy quilting.